um, touch upon them and try to understand them. Okay, so let us go into the text first.
Sir,
And yes,
sir, I have a question.
yeah,
That means we don't have question from line. I mean, reference to the context question from this part.
I have not. Uh, I have I have been asked to create like broad questions of 10 marks, and later I was asked to make them for 5 marks. And I think I said just like turn them like reduce the marks of these 4 questions to 5. However, I am not sure if you are having questions of like reference to the context. Do you have questions of 5 marks which are reference to the context from poems or drama?
We have in UG, but we are not sure in this PG. So that's why asking that we have this reference to the context or this theme based question only.
Well, even if you have reference to the context, then too it should not be a big problem, because it's only 300 words, 52 lines. So you'll be very comfortable with the reference to the context. And since they are shorter pieces, they are shorter extracts, I will be going line by line. I will try to explain the entire thing, whatever I have chosen for you. Okay, so it will not be a problem, even if reference to the context comes other than these 4 questions. Okay, so I too am not sure what's going on right now, but I think in a day or two, maybe in another week, we will know what exactly you're going to get from these texts. Okay, so I will share the screen once more. All right. So Absalom and Achitophel. So we know that this is also a neoclassical text, okay, because it was written and published in the neoclassical age. So it has the features of neoclassical poetry in it, and the most obvious feature is the heroic couplets. Okay, like begins in kind confined, so on and so forth. So heroic if it comes for, if a question is like this, that comment on the neoclassical elements in Absalom and Achitophel, then you can go for simply the heroic couplet thing, and you can still get enough marks from 5. But you need also to give an example, like you can give the first 4 lines as example, or you can just talk about the first 4 lines that they have. They are composed in heroic couplet. You might also want to say what a heroic couplet is, or another name of the heroic couplet is usually known to be Alexandrine, whether this is an Alexandrine or not. And then you don't need to write too much about it. Okay, so in pious times, priestcraft did begin. So, as a satire, we find the very first line replete with satire. In pious times, when the times were pious, when the time was holy, before, before priestcraft did begin, when the priests had not interfered in worship, then it was a time of holiness. It was a time of individuals' communion with God. It is only after the interference of the priests that the communion, the connection between God and human beings was severed, was ruptured. So before the priestcraft began, before the priests took over, before the church took over, before the temples, before the mahants, before the Maulvis took over, things were pious, things were pure, things were as they should have been. The devotee and the God. There were no middlemen. There were no intermediaries. The number of intermediaries increase, the, the more corrupt the system becomes. Before polygamy was made a sin. So Dryden is talking about a time when polygamy was not a sin. So polygamy was made a sin, I think, after Christianity came into being. Like Christianity is against polygamy. Like I think it is said in Bible that thou shall not marry twice, or thou shall not have two wives, or something like that. Nobody really talked about having girlfriends or boyfriends outside marriage and having an affair or so. But polygamy was not a sin before Christianity made its impact. And there could be various reasons as to why polygamy was made a sin uh, by the Christian priests, or by the Christian people. Um, I cannot dwell on that, on those reasons. But anyway, and to put polygamy and piousness together might be a double-edged irony, or a double-edged satire on those who were thinking that it were the priests or it were the church who actually corrupted religion. Because before Christianity came, everything, according to the Christians, everything was like in shambles, everything was in chaos, and whatever is not Christian, is not pious, is not worshipable. Okay, so Christianity came in and brought civilizational values, brought cultural values onto the world. According to many people, it is Christianity which made us civilized. And before Christianity, polygamy was like practiced rampantly. Whoever could afford polygamy. Anyway, when man on many multiplied his kind, or 1 to 1 was cursedly confined. So when man on many multiplied his kind, like a single man would marry a number of women, and they will have a number of kids from different mothers. Maybe here Dryden is taking a pot shot at kings who were promiscuous, who had various bastard sons, and that led to a lot of problems of hereditariness of the throne. Because if you have a number of bastard sons, they will come periodically and would lay claim to the throne after your death. So he is satirizing the promiscuity, he is satirizing the philandering nature of the king, of the kings. And he is calling that 1 to 1 was cursedly confined. 1 to 1 marriage or 1 to 1 love was not confined earlier, and hence now when it is confined to that one should marry only one and should not covet thy neighbor's wife or something like that, it's in a kind of an irony, in a kind of a satire. Dryden is saying that it has been found to be a curse. When nature prompted and no law denied promiscuous use of concubine and bride. So once upon a time, whenever whenever the instincts kicked in, whenever a man thought that it's time to make love, and law did not deny that man that opportunity. What happened was that there was promiscuous use of concubine and bride. So either they had concubines or they had brides. So this is a direct attack against the harem, the kind of sexual behavior that the kings used to um, display, and kings were often known to be of this nature, that they would make love to whoever catches their fancy. Then Israel's monarch, after heaven's own heart, his vigorous warmth did variously impart. So Israel's monarch, here we start an allegory. Okay, here we find a story of Israel's monarch, but actually the story is about the England's king, who behaved in a similar manner. Okay, so the story, the apparent story is that of the Israel's monarch, or the Israel's king, but the real story is that of an English king who did something like this. After heaven's own heart, his vigorous warmth did variously impart. So his vigorous warmth means his semen, his babies, he imparted, he gave to various people. He was um, he was a playboy. He was a promiscuous person. He was a philanderer who, wherever he went, he took a wife or a concubine, and he planted his seeds onto them. To wives and slaves and wide as his command, scattered his maker's image through the land. So he had various wives, he had various slaves, he even made love to his slaves, and as wide as his command, like he commanded an entire country, he commanded an entire realm, and wherever his command went, he scattered his maker's image, like he duplicated his image in the form of a son, who came up later to lay claim on the throne, complicating the issue of ascendancy a lot, leading to a lot of internal trouble in the country. He scattered his seeds wherever he went. So this story is also about the king and his son. Okay, and how this thing actually complicated the issues of descendancy and ascendancy and stuff like that. So Michael, of royal blood, the crown did wear, a soil ungrateful to the tiller's care. So Michael becomes the uh, the the crown prince or the king, and we can talk about this king to be Charles II, and Michael could be the son, that is the Monmouth, the Earl of Monmouth, that is Achitophel. So there are layers of allegories here, whereas on one hand we can talk about King David as far as Israel's monarch is concerned, who is actually Absalom. Who is actually Achitophel, and Absalom is King David and his rebellion. On another hand, we can talk about King Charles and his bastard son. So the relationship between Michael and David is the same as the relationship is there between Charles II and the Earl of Monmouth. So, okay. So Michael of royal blood, the crown did wear, a soil ungrateful to the tiller's care. So the soil was ungrateful to the tiller's care, like the people who till the land, the farmers, they were not cared for. Of course, it's very common that the farmers or the peasants, the laborers will not be given their due share, and the king or the lords steal it, take it away. Um so the Michael, or uh, what's his name, the Duke of Monmouth, James Scott, they wore the crown, and but the things did not really change a lot, and the soil was still ungrateful to the tiller's care. Not so the rest, for several mothers bore to God like David several sons before. So David is mentioned here, and David is Absalom. So to God like David, several sons before. So there were several mothers to, there were several wives to David, and there were several sons also. But since his slaves his bed they did ascend, no true succession could their seed attain. Now, since there were so many bastard sons, then there were so many uh, people who laid claim to the throne. No true succession could see their seed attain. So, the sons of David, or sons of the bastard sons or illegitimate sons of Charles II, could lay a true claim to the throne. Of all this numerous progeny was none so beautiful, so brave as Absalom. So, out of all of these issues, the Duke of Monmouth, or Absalom, or uh, these people, uh, among all of these people, among all of these claimers to the throne, it was Absalom, or it was Duke of Monmouth, or it was James Scott, who actually was very brave, who actually was quite popular, and so everybody liked him. Whether inspired by some divine lust, so there was some kind of a diviner lust, there was some kind of a diviner desire that spurred his father, got him with a greater gust. So was it that because only because Absalom was more handsome and more brave and more powerful, more intelligent, perhaps his father, Charles II or David, got him, like produced him, gave birth to him with a greater gust, like maybe there was more love involved, maybe there was it was not just a kind of a one night stand kind of thing, but it was more of a mutual love and respect for, or desire for each other, that gave birth to such a talented person as James. Or that his conscious destiny made way by manly beauty to imperial sway. So was it because uh, the father and the mother had, like, by instinct or by some trick of DNA, had produced a better son? Or was it that there, he was conscious of his destiny, like uh, James became conscious of his destiny, that he is going to be the next king of England? Manly beauty, so he was charming, he was attractive, he was brave, So using all of these qualities, he gradually made his way the uh, to the crown of England. Okay. Early in foreign fields, he won renown, with kings and states allied to Israel's crown. So how did he made his way the to the throne, or how was he making his way to his father's place? Was by uh, winning a number of battles in the foreign field. Since he was talented, since he was brave, since he was intelligent, he did win over his enemies, and he also brought a number of allies for the for Israel's crown, or for England's crown. He either made them vassal states, or he made them sign a treaty of peace, or he made them come together by the way of marriage or anything else. But this this is how James, or the Earl of Monmouth, brought a number of allies and friends who were ready to go to war against Israel's or England's enemies together. In peace, the thoughts of war he could remove, and seemed as he were only born for love. But when there was peace, when there was no war to be fought, he he appeared as if he was made only for love. He was a I mean, usually what happens is that when you go out and when you fight wars on foreign turfs, you become ragged and you lose your charm. You become a more of a military person than a kind of a playboy, or a suave, sophisticated man. But when Monmouth was so James was so adaptable to various circumstances that he could adapt very easily between um, his military duties and his position as a prince, and Prince Charming actually. And people thought that he is actually a hero from a romance who would be very romantic. Whatever he did was done with so much ease. In him alone, it was natural to please. So he was a pro at pleasing people. He was good at anything that he wanted to be good at. He did everything with a kind of uh, an ease, and he could please anyone. He could make friends with anyone in any way whatsoever. Uh, His motions all accompanied with grace, and paradise was opened in his face. So he moved with a grace. He had a grace in his movements. He was quite a handsome and charming person who could attract a lot of attention of both the sexes for different reasons, or for the same reason maybe. And paradise was opened in his face, so he felt as if he had some kind of, or the people felt that he was chosen by God, or he had a sense of bliss on his face. So might people might have had believed that he was blessed, and he too believed in the fact that he was conscious of his destiny. So if so much was there already in him, if so much promise was seen already in him, then he too believed that he was built to become the King of England. Now, this very similar things happened with, I think, Rahul Gandhi. Like, when Rahul Gandhi first came to the scene, many uh, people in Congress and many people who were not in Congress believed that he might carry on the good work, or whatever work his father Rajiv Gandhi had done, or maybe his mother Sonia Gandhi had done, and he will continue the empire of the Congress. But well, as soon as he opened his mouth, we realized that, well, he is not going to make the cut. But he looks great. He is well, still unmarried, and I'm sure he has some kind of talent. Um, he has grace, he has charm, which I don't see in Amit Shah, because he's like fat and he's bald. I mean, he's not, as a person, he's not really attractive as opposed to Rahul Gandhi might be, or Priyanka Gandhi might be. But what we expect is does not always come true. So anyway, with secret joy, indulgent David viewed his youthful image in his son renewed. So David was very happy. We are talking in terms of the Israel context. David was very happy. He was joyful, but secretly he was enjoying this joy to see that his son is made exactly in his image. I mean, it gives a father great joy to see his son or daughter built up exactly in his image. Because I think there are two things that work here. One is the fact that, okay, my wife has not cheated on me, and secondly, uh, the fact that there is a kind of a confirmation of DNA happening, where uh, I mean, instinctually, all beings want to continue their line of DNA, and uh, this is what I think is happening with anyone, including David, who is happy to find that his copy, his DNA, um, his image will continue uh, further. But why is his joy secret? We can ask this to people present here. Anybody would like to comment? Why is his joy secret? Why can't he make his joy very apparent? Why does he have to have a secret joy? You can also write your answer in the chat box. Okay, I'll pick and choose then to ask you for your answers. Ankita, would you like to hazard a guess as to why his joy is secret? Or no? Yes, I think there is an answer in the chat box. Well, kings are really very fond of showing off, Orchuk. I think that is not the issue, that he did not want to show off. Arnab, would you like to say anything about this?
No, sir.
Okay. Riddhi, Riddhi Sarkar. Zufesha, anyone? Why would he keep his joy secret? Though he's indulgent, but he keeps his joy a secret. I mean, the answer is obvious, and the answer is there. Okay. Well, the simple fact is that uh, James, no matter how James Scott, no matter how talented, no matter how uh, young, no matter how uh, famous he is, popular he is after all a bastard son. He's after all an illegitimate son of the illegitimate king. I mean, I'm saying illegitimate because the kids cannot be illegitimate. It is the fathers who are actually illegitimate. Anyway, so the 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 king is indulgent, and yet he is like doing it in secret. He's secretly joyful to see his son having his own image, because he has to, I mean, everybody knows the secret, but he cannot openly acknowledge that James Scott is his son, and he cannot uh, actively bring him into the court and say that uh, Duke of Monmouth is going to be the next king, but that's what he wants. To all his wishes nothing he denied, and made the charming Annabel his bride. So whatever Monmouth, whatever James Scott wanted out of the king gave him, and Annabel was made the bride, and Annabel has uh, uh, an English parallel for Monmouth. What faults he had, for who from faults is free, his father could not, or he would not see. So here is a satire against the Duke of Monmouth, that he might have a number of faults like everybody else has. I mean, there's no one in this world who is free of faults. Everybody has their faults, but the father could not see or would not see. And this is something really very problematic, because if you are creating a dynasty, um, you need to pick your successor on the basis of merit, not on the basis of whether that person is your friend or your relative, your son or your nephew or your um, sister, whoever. But that is what happened in England, and that is what is happening in our country as well. Nepotism is rife, and in nepotism, people denying that if there is some faults on the part of the candidate who has been chosen over another meritorious candidate. Okay, so this line actually laments the fact that uh, when a kingdom is concerned, a father is not really going to going, a father should not pick a successor. The party should, or the people should, or there should be some other mechanism on which the leader of a country should be chosen, not because you are so and so's daughter or so and so's son or nephew or whatever. Blood relations, love blinds us, and a country cannot be run on personal indulgences. That was the mistake of Charles II, because he indulged into Monmouth rather too much. Some warm excesses which the law forbore were construed youth that purged by boiling over. So warm excesses may be of kind of sexual nature, which, I mean, if Monmouth is exactly the photocopy of his father, then of course, just like his father, he too must have these sexual misconducts that his father was so famous or infamous of. And since he was a young person, it was understood that youth boils over and they make mistakes. Even the law was against it, but uh, Monmouth did not really care, or David or Charles II hid all these transgressions that um, Monmouth indulged in, so that his political career is not affected. And this is a common theme of so many, web series, so many movies, where the son, drunk on the pride of the fact that his father is a politician, does anything that the person likes to do, because the father is killing a journalist here and threatening a policeman there, or bribing an official there. So he takes care of his son's aggressions, and that leads to more transgressions against the state, against the society, against humans, against people, and it leads to the downfall of a particular politician over time. And Amnon's murder by a specious name was called a just revenge for injured fame. So I think Amnon has a biblical reference, and by a specious name, I think it refers to Monmouth himself. And in England back then, there were a lot of duels that were organized, where two people would fight against each other, and one will kill another, um, in the name of securing one's injured pride. Like, if you insult someone, then you will challenge that person. The person insulted will challenge whoever has insulted him for a duel, and if you are killed in that duel, then you will not be caught by the law. But if you commit a murder outside duel, then you will be executed. But if you are killed in a duel, then nobody will call the law into question. So doing some kind of some kind of an incident happened over there, where Monmouth killed someone, and this killing was covered under the aspect of a duel. Somebody might have had uh, you know challenged or called Monmouth's activities into question. Maybe somebody raised a question against the king's son, and the son killed that particular person, as reporters and journalists, bloggers are often murdered, but giving it the name of a duel, so that Monmouth is not brought into question. Thus praised and loved, the noble youth remained, while David, undisturbed in Zion, reigned. So everybody praised Monmouth, and everybody loved him, because his faults were always hidden by the king. And David was also ruling in Zion, that is the ancient name of Israel, or here Charles II was ruling over England without any particular problems. But life can never be sincerely blessed. Heaven punishes the bad and proves the best. But if everything is going on nicely, it will not go on nicely forever, and every good and bad thing must come to an end. So heaven will punish the bad, and heaven will prove that there is a order and God is there, and everything will be brought into a particular order. The same happened in England, the same happened in the biblical story of David. The Jews, a headstrong, moody, murmuring race, as ever tried the extent and stretch of grace. So the Jews uh, brought in some kind of a revolution. The Jews brought in some kind of a problem for David. The same problem was created for Charles II by uh, the Whigs or the Protestants. They they like they were they I mean they did not want a Catholic ruler, and the Whigs did not want a Tory ruler, so they combined hands and they tried to bring a disturbance in uh, the realm. God's pampered people, whom debauched with ease, no king could govern, nor no God could please. So, God's pampered people, actually, the phrase was God's chosen people. Israelites were once considered to be the chosen people of God. But here, God's pampered people is being referred to, on one hand the Israelites, on another hand the English. They were debauching with ease, they were living a life of luxury, they were living a life of sin, and there was no problem in their lives. And people like these cannot be governed by a king. Like, it is so often seen that when a father indulges in a sinful son, the son sometimes leads to the father's death, or the son himself kills the father for more wealth, for more debauchery, for whatever reasons. Gods, they had tried of every shape and size that goldsmiths could produce or priests devise. Now, here God could be an allegory for various kinds of lords, various kinds of alliances with various kinds of power, sometimes with Prussia, sometimes with Russia, sometimes with Scotland, sometimes with France, sometimes with Finland. They were like, these people were always doing some kind of a political intrigue. Some kind of political intrigue was always going on. So godsmiths are those who are known as kingmakers, or priests. Priests were also brought into question because the church back then was really corrupt, and the king wanted to go into an atad with the priests, with the church, so that his kingdom, so that his reign could be prolonged. But ultimately what happened is that this unholy alliance between the church and the king, or the alliance between the kingmakers outside England or inside England, that is rich people, rich traders who would often lobby for a particular king, they failed to achieve what they were supposed to achieve. And it resulted in after the death of Charles II, James Scott, Earl of Monmouth, could never become the next king. It was James II or James I who actually ascended the king in place of his brother, instead of his son. And later, in the Glorious Revolution of 1688, he too had to abdicate his throne and run away. It was actually, I think, James of Orange, who was James the First, I think, who came to the throne. I'm not sure about this, but we are not concerned about that because it is not mentioned in this particular text. But this is what actually happened. And the Earl of Monmouth tried to fight. They were trying to raise a rebellion against the new king, but the rebellion was put off, and I think Monmouth was killed. So that is how the thing turned out to be. Okay, so that is the extract, and these 4 questions that I mentioned here, um, other than the fact that the theme of temptation is not really played out well, but whatever theme of temptation we can find here, the one stands out. And as I said, that for a 5 mark question, you just need to point out 1 point, maybe maximum 2 point, and give proper examples, and that will cover the 5 mark part. Okay. So as far as the theme of temptation is concerned, I think the temptation here is twofold. One, we see David or we see Charles II to be tempted by sexual pleasure, and hence giving rise to a number of illegitimate uh, descendants, creating a lot of problem for the kingdom. And on another hand, the temptation of love for one's own child, leading to the destruction of the child uh, himself or herself. So because we are dealing only with an extract, we will deal with the theme or whatever aspects we find within the text, within the extract itself. Okay, so I think this will be easier than other texts that we have dealt with, and I hope you can also talk about the reference to the context if it comes, if it appears in your question. Okay, so any questions from this particular area, like this particular extract, because I don't want to push too much on a single day, and I will finish the class here if you do not have any queries or questions or doubts. You can have questions and doubts from the earlier texts also, because we have like 15 minutes more, but especially if you have any questions from Absolam and Achitophel's extract. Okay, so you may leave the meeting for today, and we might meet again in this week, which seems a little difficult because our colleges have opened and we will be going for offline classes. So I'm not sure if second temptation, oh yeah, the second temptation is of the son, of the father, the love of the father for the son, which actually spoils the son. So that is the temptation, that all parents have this kind of temptation. I mean, Manoah also had this kind of temptation, like, you know, that you think that you're doing good for your son by hiding his mistakes, but actually that leads to the downfall of the son and along with the kingdom also. Sexual temptation on the part of the king having number of babies, that was the first temptation. Okay, if you do not have any more questions, you may leave the meeting. We will meet surely next week, but maybe even before that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, welcome.